Welcome to the wonderful world of dance, bringing you exclusive interviews with top dancers and choreographers and reviews of the world's best companies across the globe. You can find lots more on our website at thewonderfulworldofdance.com.
Hi, this is Savannah Saunders from The Wonderful World of Dance. Today we're talking with BalletBoyz dancer Bradley Waller. Thank you for joining us, Bradley.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm really excited to be talking to you about your company and your journey. So, firstly, tell us about the acclaimed dance company BalletBoyz.
So BalletBoyz is, as you probably know, an all-male dance company.
Yeah.
Which kind of sets it aside from most other companies out there, which are mixed. And it's also quite a small company. There are only 10 of us, so it's quite intimate. But yeah, we work with as many different choreographers as we can. Really, we mix in a lot of different styles of dance. We go from much more neoclassical based pieces to much more contemporary grounded work. So there's a big variation of work that we do in the company, as well as just being an all-male dance company.
And you're performing in BalletBoyz' upcoming production of Life at the Arts Depot, and you're touring around the country, I understand, with Life.
Yeah.
So tell us about the piece.
New show that we're doing titled Life. It's a double bill, and BalletBoyz have commissioned two choreographers to come in and create two half an hour length pieces, both inspired by Life. So we've got in the first half, it's created by a choreographer called Pontus Lidberg, who's renowned for doing much more classically based pieces with a lot more technique, if you will, ballet technique influence. He's kind of done a lot of work in the past with ballet companies in Europe, and he's also just been commissioned to do a piece with New York City Ballet as well. And then in the second half, it's kind of on the complete other end of the spectrum. It's a piece created by Javier de Frutos called Fiction, and his approach to creating work is a lot more theatre-based, if you will. It's a lot more about the characters and about where the journey that each character kind of takes. And it was interesting, really, because I think Life, when people read Life, the title Life, it's kind of such a delicate subject.
Yeah.
And everybody's interpretation of Life is so different, and it always resorts back to that kind of, what's the meaning of life? And people kind of want hoping maybe to find answers or maybe even more questions. So I think it's such an interesting show that we've been working on.
And tell us about your experience of working with the two choreographers. As you say, Javier and Pontus are quite different in their dance styles. What's it like working with a small company, 10 dancers, very intimate, as you say, with these two different choreographers? What was that experience like in terms of creating the work and working together?
It's always interesting, especially when you have 10 young men in a small studio together, and with the choreographer, it's interesting, to see what we can come up with. You can never really predict what the outcome will be, which it's one of the best parts of the job, really, because you never know what you're going to get. And it's also quite intimate as well, because there are only a few of us, and throughout the process, it gives the choreographer a chance to really get to know us all quite personally. And I think they like that, because they use it a lot when they're creating the work, and they kind of use our personalities to choreograph the movement, so that we show a little bit of ourselves when we dance or when we perform on stage. Talking about working with the two separately, it's kind of you separate the two. I never try too hard to compare them, especially when it's a double bill. because these two people have come in with very different ideas.
Very distinct.
So I try my hardest not to be too, comparing one to the other. So I kind of just walk into the studio, depending on who I'm working with, just with a very open idea. So I just kind of, I don't let them influence each other.
Sure. And so it's very much been a process of co-creation with yourselves as the dancers and with the choreographers, would you say, or?
Yes, definitely. I think more choreographers are inclined to work that way than others. I think we look for the choreographer for inspiration, and they also look for us for a lot of the inspiration. Some days they may come in and they may need us to show them something before they know which direction they want to take. So it is kind of like it's a lot of the working process is a lot of collaborating with us and them. It's not just always the choreographer coming in and giving us the steps. Sometimes it's the other way around. It's almost as though we're trying to give them the steps, but then it's the choreographer that really directs it and kind of gives it a lot more meaning, and it brings it somewhere else. So it's great to work in that way.
It sounds like quite an interesting show coming up with Life. So tell me, you've been with the company how long now?
I'm coming up to about 3.5 years now. I've been with the company. Almost 4 years, yeah. So I'm, I guess, in terms of BalletBoyz, I'm almost one of the veterans.
Yeah.
So, so it's nice. It's nice now that I've been here for this length of time.
And so tell us about a typical day with the BalletBoyz.
A typical day, it varies depending on what our schedule is, whether we're on tour or working on a specific project. But generally, our day will begin at about 10:30, and we'll take class in the morning. That will be either ballet or contemporary, depending on what work we're doing during the day. And then after class, we'll go straight into rehearsals, kind of fresh, we're warm, and we're ready to work. And then we'll take an hour's lunch break at any part of the day, really, depending on when the choreographer or whoever is working with us feels it's right. And then after that, we'll continue to rehearse up until about 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's kind of a full-on day. Yeah, we're kind of working. As soon as we get into the studio, we're kind of working on whatever it is.
And you came to dance yourself quite late. You started at about 16, is that right?
Yeah. 16. Yes, I'd gone through the whole of high school without ever actually getting into dance, and it wasn't until I came to the end of my schooling that I suddenly started dancing, which in some ways it can be seen as quite late.
Yeah.
I know there's other dancers in the company that started as late as 18. And I feel like it's much more common for boys for some reason. I don't know why. I feel as though it's much more common for boys to start much later than girls. I don't know why that is. I don't know if there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
But then there are some dancers in the company that started dancing when they were as young as 3 years old or 4 years old. So it's great to be in a company where the dancers have had such different backgrounds and experiences with dance, because I think we thrive from that. We as individuals in the company, we bounce off one another, and it really it complements everybody as dancers.
And it must make for quite an interesting company as well, in terms of very varied backgrounds, bringing quite different techniques and styles and experience.
Yes, definitely. I think it helps us grow. It makes us. I know that kind of. It sounds a little bit silly to say that, but it does. It makes us stronger as a group, because everybody does have such different strengths and weaknesses as well, and we work really well because we're so close all the time. and we're kind of, you can't help but be really aware of each other or help each other.
Yeah.
And, so we've got quite a strong bond in the company, which is great. I think that also it really reflects onto the stage. I think it really shows the way that we work in the studio. It does it kind of transfers onto the stage, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having seen obviously the BalletBoyz, seen you on stage, it definitely translates. It's very apparent that you're a very close, intimate company, which is wonderful. It translates beautifully, actually. So, yeah, I'm just interested to know, sort of in terms of your personal journey, starting to dance at 16, sort of when did you know you wanted to do this sort of as a profession, become a professional dancer?
I mean, looking back on it now, it almost feels as though it happened almost overnight. I'd always, growing up, I'd always had interests, and I'd always been quite interested in sports and active things, but I'd never found anything that I felt really passionate about. And then as I got to the end of my schooling, and my sister insisted that I joined her at a local dance class, and for weeks and weeks I was reluctant to go, as any other 16-year-old boy probably would be. I was reluctant to join her, and then eventually I gave in, and in my head I kind of figured, if I go with her this one time, she'll stop asking me to go. And after that weekend of going to this dance class with my sister, which was it was a hip hop class actually, I just couldn't get enough. I don't know what it was about it. There was just something about it that just hooked me in. I couldn't get enough of it for some reason. And then after that I went every weekend. And eventually I started to take it more seriously, and I remember having a discussion with my mum at the time, and I explained that I was interested in maybe pursuing it as a career, as a profession. And it was my mum that said, if you want to do this as a career, you're going to have to do ballet. And again, I went through the whole thing of being reluctant to do ballet. And then before I know it, I had tights on, I had ballet shoes, and I was in the studio. And, so it just took off really. It really just one thing led to another, and the snowball got bigger and bigger and bigger. And before I knew it, I was just absolutely in love with it. I'd never been as passionate about something before. It was.
And then you've danced you trained up in Nottingham with the Rambert School of Ballet and Contemporary Dance as well. You've worked with choreographers such as Mark Baldwin and Kerry Nichols, and of course, at the BalletBoyz working with the acclaimed Michael and Billy. So that must be quite an extraordinary experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's astounding to think of how you continue to find things that inspire you.
Yeah.
You're almost always brought up on this thing that your learning just happens at school, but then you leave school and you continue to learn. There's always things that are interesting. So it was that's the way it happened with me, really. Once I went to Rambert, I discovered all these new things that I'd never known before, and it helped me flourish. And working with people like Kerry Nichols and Mark Baldwin was a real eye-opener. I think for me that was one of the biggest breakthroughs in my training, was working with Kerry Nichols. We did a piece called Hagira, and it really it gave me a taste of how dance could be outside of a school. And then from there I was fortunate enough to, in my third year at Rambert, to become an apprentice with the BalletBoyz. Michael and Billy came into Rambert, and they observed one of the classes, and from there I kind of continued to work with the BalletBoyz on there, which at the time was a piece choreographed by, it was another double bill, choreographed by Liam Scarlett and Russell Marathon.
Wow.
Serpent and Fallen.
Oh yes. I saw those. That was just astounding pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the biggest eye openers for me. Really, that was one of my first professional show, and it was kind of almost a baptism of fire in a way, because through school you become so accustomed to lifting girls. You train in pas de deux, and I'd only ever really lifted girls, and I remember working on forward, which was quite hands-on. There was a lot of partnering with the other guys, and I remember lifting one of the other BalletBoyz, and I just remember being so shocked at his weight. It was a lot heavier than the girls I was used to, so that was kind of, I didn't learn everything in school that I needed to, so it was good.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What are your sort of inspirations or aspirations for your career, for your time with the BalletBoyz?
I mean, I'm kind of in a place where I feel very, very happy with where I am. It's such a the BalletBoyz is such a young man's company, I guess. And each year they continue to work with such interesting choreographers and varied choreographers, and it always interests me to work with people that I wouldn't necessarily always choose. I mean, we get to work with people that I've just absolutely admired, which is amazing. But it's also great to kind of send myself outside of my comfort zone sometimes. So I'm really happy with where I am at the moment. I think if there ever did come a time where I wanted to maybe explore and move on, that would feel fine to do that. That transition would feel fine. But for the time being, I think the BalletBoyz are just, they continue to create interesting work and work with interesting people. So it's quite refreshing.
Well, definitely looking forward to catching live and seeing both Javier and Pontus's work, and also your work and the company's work. So finally, before we go. What advice would you give to other sort of teenage male aspiring dancers who may be 16-year-olds thinking about, pursuing this love of dance? What advice would you give them?
I think the best advice I could give to them would be to I guess you could apply this to anything, whether it's dance or anything else that you're interested in, and that would be just to not be afraid of taking a chance or trying things. I think it's so important to kind of you can live your life, can't you, and in a way that you would have regrets of never actually trying something that you'd always kind of been interested in. I think just never feel afraid to give things a go, whether they feel wrong or right, and it's that through doing that you'll discover so many new things. I think as well, go and see as much as you can. Go and see as much theatre as you can, and the arts and things like that. It's always great to go out and see as much as you can.
Absolutely. And there's so much wonderful dance to see in the UK, Europe, London. Definitely. Yeah, we're blessed. So, I just want to thank you very much for talking with us, Bradley.
No, thank you.
And good luck, and I'll see you on stage soon.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.